So Solid Edge P&ID is a project-based system for a schematic capture tool, primarily focused on the process and instrumentation diagrams. Now, when we say a project-based system, what we mean is we can have many different types of documents within inside of this one digital file. Okay, so very similar to Microsoft Excel, we have multiple tabs down here at the bottom of our screen where we can navigate to the different sheets. Okay, so we can start off, and I got my cover sheet, table of contents, and then we have other sheets. We can get into these different chapter dividers. In this case, I've named it diagrams. I also have a chapter divider here for lists and reports like bills and materials, that type of thing. This is just an organizational tool because very often our customers might have hundreds of sheets in a P&ID document. So this will help classify things. Very commonly, it might be like building 1 or building 2 or phase 1 of a process and phase 2 of a process, and they might have many sheets involved in there that you can organize things together with inside of these little chapters here. And you can expand and collapse them depending on what you need access to at this time. Now, the heart and soul of a P&ID is the diagram sheet, okay, what we see here. Now, earlier we said that our P&ID is an intelligent P&ID. What does that mean? Okay, now roughly, basically what it is we're not a traditional 2D CAD, an architectural package that we've just slapped on a library of symbols for. It's more than just lines, arcs, and circles here. So if we wanted to find out, what size is this piece of pipe, okay, we hover our mouse over it, we can find out its size 80 millimeters. The spec that we're using, we can even come up and tell it what fluid medium we're carrying here. It's got pure steam in it. Also, if you're not familiar with what a symbol might be, you can hover your mouse over it and it'll tell you that this is a double tube heat exchanger. Its part number or article number is 104005. So you know what information you need to go to order things, and more specifically, what physical component you're looking at as opposed to just a graphical representation. Now, in addition to all of that, very often you might run out of room on one page and need to continue on to another. In my case today here, we're only looking at 2 diagram pages, so not very hard to figure out. But again, very often we might have, is it sheet number 2 or is it sheet 42? And keeping track of that can be a challenging task. So we can actually have these line links over here to tell it where it came from or where it goes to. And double clicking on it, we'll take and put our mouse cursor on where that our pipeline continues on the subsequent sheet. Some other aspects that we can get into here is talking about, well, where does all of this information come from? Okay, and so for our symbols within inside of P&ID, we have a symbol menu. Now, inside of here, we have many different standards of libraries of symbols that we provide out of the box for you, okay, with Solid Edge P&ID. Okay, so we have our ISO standard of symbols. We got some a library of some examples of sensors, but also the ISA 5.1 and 5.5 libraries, which are more commonly used in North America. There's also some additional regional types of libraries, some miscellaneous symbols and arrows, and then we also provide out of the box a library of pneumatic symbols if you get into pneumatics. We're also providing you with some templates, so some drawing templates, borders to get you started if you don't have anything from a previous system. But you can also, if you do have a drawing border or a title block that you want to use and continue to use, we can import that. As long as you can get it into a DWG or a DXF format, we can pull it into Solid Edge P&ID and turn it into a native template. You can also create your own custom symbols. Okay, so getting inside of here, not very often do people come into this full library and place symbols. Typically, we're going to customize our toolbars up here to put the symbols and components that you most commonly use in here so that you don't have to dig through that big library of symbols, which is roughly a bit over 700 symbols out of the box. Now, if there are some symbols for things that you need that we might happen to not have, then you can also create your own symbols from scratch with inside of our tool. Okay, we have a symbol generator. Go in and give it some size and shape and how many connections and things that it might need. Or you can completely draw it from scratch or import it. Again, if you can get it into a DWG or a DXF format, we can input those symbols and then add the intelligence, okay, that our solid edge P&ID has. Now, again, being that we are not a, or that we are a schematic capture tool, there's certain things that come about, and we can close that up. There are certain things that come about that we can get into as far as, well, how do you get your data? Okay, sometimes if I wanted to come in here and add a pump, for example, sometimes the information is not given to you up front as far as exactly what horsepower a pump, what size it is, what model number, and that kind of thing. There might be some engineering that still has to be done to size things. So in that case, you might want to come in and conceptually lay things out. Okay, so I could say that there's going to be a pump. I don't know what size or model number it is, but I know there's going to be a pump here. So I can go ahead and place the symbol here for it, and I can give it a tag number. Okay, we can say maybe a P2002 might be an example of a tag number for a pump that I want to use. Now, the important thing is that we don't duplicate tag numbers in a P&ID project. Bad things can happen then, or expensive things. So we can come over here and hit the question mark in our dialog here, and it will roll up from 2002 to 2004 because 2002 and 2003 have already been used. Okay, so we're going to keep track of your tag numbers for you to help you not duplicate tag numbers. All right, now the rest of the information we don't really know anything about yet, but we can come in here and tell it more information about it. So we could conceptually lay things out, and then we could come in and draw a pipeline to say that how it's going to be connected. Okay, maybe I want to come in here and draw this and say, oh, I want to draw from this heat exchanger. Okay, well, if I don't actually click on the heat exchanger, it's going to know that, hey, pipes don't usually float out in thin air. We want to go in and actually connect it to something. Okay, so we have these little red diamond shapes that are our connection points. Okay, so they're, again, a level of intelligence there. And once we connect it, it knows that, hey, yeah, that's normal. You connect a pipe to something else. And then once they're connected, they stay connected, even if they cross over other lines and things of that nature. All right. Now, later on, once you find out what part number or that you're going to use here, you can come back and add that in later. If you know from the very beginning, for example, maybe I want to come in here and get rid of this and kind of start over here a little bit. Sometimes you get the information up front and you know exactly what part number you're going to get, and so we can work with that workflow as well, where we can come in and we can say, all right, I know exactly what pump I want to use. I have my library of components in here that again can be built by yourself, or you can import information from like an ERP system and pull in and populate with all of the parts and the part numbers that you use inside of your company. Okay, so instead of coming through here and just searching through a bunch of pumps, maybe I know who makes the pump. Okay, I don't know the part number. I'm not really good at memorizing part numbers, but maybe I can come in and say, well, I know what type of a component, a pump, PUMP. Okay, it starts filtering out the database. I can also get into, maybe I know specifically what manufacturer I want to use, maybe an Apex pump. A and P, type that in and it starts filtering out. Or again, maybe a Grundfos pump, one of our customers as well. Getting in and get a few different results here. And so we're getting a narrower field to look through, and we can decide which one we want to go from there. And when we do it this way, the database knows what symbol is supposed to be used by that particular part number. Okay, so we can come in and place it, rotate the symbols, of course, change the size and make them larger or smaller relative to how much space you have on the screen and how big other components might be. So in this case, it knows, it pulls in that, okay, that's a pump. Typically with pumps, I start them off with a tag number of P and then a number. Okay, so in this case, I can come in here and I can say this is going to be a P3000. And then I'll ask the system, has this been used before? Okay, it didn't move, didn't change, so this tag number was free. Okay. We can also get into adding process-specific information about this pump. We might use 12 of these pumps in our design, but each time we use it, it could be a different fluid medium, different operating temperatures and pressures that we can come in and either choose from a pull-down menu or type in the values and say maybe this is going to be operating at 90 degrees C, designed for 95, but it might have a maximum temperature of 105. Operating pressure at 10 bars, 12 would be what it's going to be designed for, but we want to make sure it doesn't exceed 16 bars of pressure, for example. And so all of these pieces of process-specific information are tailored in here to remember what type of component you're using, so it's going to have these saved in there, but you can add your own or remove them, change names on the fly as you wish. All right. Also, what connections, so it knows what size the inlet and outlet is of this pump, as well as we need more than just a pump whenever we go to order this. We also need the motor that goes with it. Okay, so instead of putting an additional symbol on there for the motor and the pump, I can have them all incorporated into one, but on my bill of materials, it'll show up any mechanical or basically accessories is what they are. All right, so we'll go ahead and hit OK. I'm happy with that. So we get our pump in there, and then again, I can come up and draw my pipeline of how I want this to connect. All right, and so now it knows exactly what pump, what model it is. I know the part number. I see all my process-specific information in here as well. Now, I need to describe what type of a pipe I'm working with. So I can double-click in here. And just like with our components, our symbols, it's important to tag our pipelines. So in here, we can either pull up a list of what tag numbers have already been used in the project, and this also works for the symbols as well. So if you wanted to see what tag numbers have already been used, you could come in there and say, oh yeah, let's continue on with this 60 series and count up from there. Or another thing you could do is maybe you're new to the company, or you know, kind of got a little lapse in memory of what we normally would use for acid or hot water or whatever with a tag numbering sequence. So we can actually come over here and pull up a list here. Okay, I call it a cheat sheet, but it's basically a list of what we do in our company as far as tag numbering sequences for what type of components. Okay, so we can come in here. I'm going to go with this PL300, even though I'm not really using acid. But we'll just say, hey, this is a PL300. Has this been used before? No, so it doesn't really matter. Now, for the rest of the information here, do I want to type it in? I could. However, manually entering data is a little bit error prone. So we can actually come up here and pull the information from our pipe specifications. Okay. Pipe specifications are a unique attribute to solid edge P&ID in the fact that we can lay out our pipes. We can have different pipe specs to tell us what sizes are available. Are they round, or are they rectangular, even cable trays? So it doesn't exactly have to be pipe. We can do any shape profile for our components here. I'm going to run with this spec 10CA, and we're going to go with 100 millimeter or 4-inch pipe. And we'll say, okay, and now the system knows all about this piece of pipe. Okay. And again, we can come in here and we can put in, you know, tag numbers here. We can, we got our tag numbers. We can put in process-specific information like, you know, maybe I want this to be hot water, that type of thing, or you can pick from a drop-down menu as well. Okay. All right, so now when we get out here, it's going to go ahead and place our label on there for us. We can move that label to a different location if we wish for it to be. And now, pipe specs do more than just make it easy to pick a size pipe from a drop-down menu. They can also assist you with what types of components you should be placing into a pipeline from this specific spec and this specific size. So instead of going and putting, I need to put a valve in here, and instead of just picking any old valve from the database that I want here, I could put the wrong one in there, possibly. So instead of doing that, I can have the system help me along the way by right-clicking and asking that I want to place from my specifications here. And so now it opens up my pipe specs, filters everything out that's not 100 millimeters, and I have my equipment here also filtered out to where I can see that I have my flow meter, globe valve, butterfly valves, three-way valves, that kind of thing. Okay, and these are all customizable. You can add and remove things from here to meet your needs at your company and the way that you do things. So I'm going to say go ahead and grab this valve, and I know that this is an approved one, and we can come over here and place it into the pipeline. And I don't even have to worry about which direction it's going. I mean, this is good for this direction, but what if I want it down here? Well, whenever I place it in here, I need to give it a tag number. We'll say that this is going to be a V3000. All right. And if we want to use reference designators, some of you guys might use that. So we can get in here and add function, location, and product designators inside of here. And these could even be formulated from a spreadsheet as well. All right. So with this case, we can come in and notice it rotates that to fit into the pipeline for me. Okay, and then you might even decide, oh, maybe this will be cleaner if I put it down here right on the nozzle and it gets rid of that other piece of pipe, but it remains connected. All right, so we can get in here now and take a look at some of the other capabilities. Now that we've created some data, we could continue on and we could say that, hey, I'm going to branch over here onto this vessel, and then we're also going to have a branch coming off of that pipeline connecting to the second vessel. All right. Now, if the pipe is going to be the same size on the other side, we could actually come in, instead of entering all that information again, we could actually have copied it the first time up here with inside of the pipe tool here. And then we could come in and apply that information, okay, by pasting it. And then all we need to do is count up to the next tag number, okay? So all of the data fields were copied, everything that it needs to know there. And then we can say, yeah, life is good. We can say, okay, and it's gonna label everything for us accordingly. Now, if we decide that, you know, we don't need that many labels, you can come into one of them and of course, turn those off if we wish. Okay, just to clean it up a little bit as well. Also, working with our pipe specs. Okay, do we want to use a T right here, or maybe we want to get into putting in a three-way valve so we can control a little bit more of this. So again, I can place from specification, and we'll say, do I have one in here? Absolutely, I do. And so we can place this three-way valve in, and then we can place it into our assembly here, and then we could say, let's go with our V3000 and count up. All right, and yeah, notice it trims everything back and cleans it up there for us. So now we have a second pipeline coming in. Also, whenever it crosses over, we can automatically have it either break the line or break it with an arc, as I'm showing right here. More commonly done in a P&ID environment with that little arc there. All right, now there's some other tools that we can get in here as well. So this is how we can create diagrams. And really what you're doing in a P&ID is you're placing symbols and then connecting them, connecting the circuit, if you will, or the pipeline, as far as instead of a current, it's just carrying a fluid. And so there's really not a whole lot of quote unquote drawing. It's more of placing symbols, connecting the dots, and describing you know, size and process information. So the advantage here is working with a database, we have all of these components in here that we know of, and we can come in and generate bills of materials from the P&ID. We do not have to go into Excel and manually generate them, do manual takeoffs, that kind of thing, or some people might then take this over into a 3D program like Solid Edge to do the 3D layout to create that digital twin so they can really see what it looks like in the real world. And you don't even have to wait until that point if you want a bill of materials. We can create it right here within inside of our P&ID environment. So we got different types of reports. This is a bill of materials where it's organized by a single line item for each tag number, and then a quantity. There's also another type of report that's also common, more common in P&IDs, is going to be a component list. Component list is more detailed than a bill of materials, and we can come in here and we can see that there's more process-specific information in here as well. So it's also organized by the tag number, so a single line item for each tag number, and then I have a part number associated to them. Okay. Now the one example there or exception that I have right here is you might see there's two P2003s. That's because there's a pump, and then remember I talked about that accessory that was added in there that I want to show up on the bill of materials, but I don't need a separate symbol for it. Okay, so that's why we got those. The other thing that's really nice here about this report is that if I want to find out, hey, where is this V2006? Well, I can look over here down the line and find out that that's on sheet number 2, column 3, row D. Okay. And if we look at our title block up here, our drawing border, you can see that it's broken up into a grid system. Okay. And we don't even have to physically navigate. We can actually just come anywhere along through there. V2006, where was that again? Double click on it, and it goes and puts your mouse cursor on that component. So we don't even have to look for it. Okay, this makes it really nice and easy to locate things from those lists. Now these lists are automatically generated here. I can come in here and update them all in one shot. Okay, add all of the new components that I've just added in there as well. Okay. I got all of my pipelines that I just added, the hot water. I didn't put temperatures in there. And then there's some other types of reports that we can create as well. So one thing that I see a lot of times in customers' examples that they send me is that they might have a legend, a symbol legend on their sheet, and it's just a blanket one that they use on every project because their system might not do what we do. We create custom symbol legends for each project only containing what symbols were used in this particular project. So it really makes it a lot easier for the recipient who's going to be reading this document. It's not to have to sift through a bunch of symbols that don't even exist in this drawing. All right, so that's generated also automatically by the system. Now, let's say that it comes time that I need to share this data with other users. Okay, and they don't have a license of Solid Edge P&ID. So there is a free viewer that you can download. Problem with that is a lot of times you don't have permissions to do that. So we can come in here and we can export to a DWG and DXF. Those also require a special viewer to be able to read those types of files. And if you're not sure if the person you're sending it to can read those types, okay, it might be somebody in procurement doing some ordering and that kind of thing that doesn't have something to read that with. I don't know anybody these days that doesn't have a PDF reader on their machine. Okay, it's part of Windows these days, and so we could actually export this out to a PDF. Okay, now we can come in and control what pages we want to share with them. Maybe I only want the diagram pages. Okay, or maybe I want to go with everything. Where do we want to save it? What resolution do we want it to be saved at? Do we want to include the intelligent data and have that pop-up information like you saw in our P&ID program? Okay, well, we can get over here and control what level of that information do you want to be able to share with people? Because very often our customers can put sensitive proprietary data in their P&IDs that they might not want to share with other people, especially if it's outside of your company. Okay. We have a lot of customers that put cost in here, so you probably definitely don't want to share that information with your customer, right? And so you can come in here and you can check these boxes of what you want to be available in the PDF and what you don't want to be available. We can also get into creating these, instead of having to click through these buttons every single time, you can set up templates here. So we can say internally, this is going to be for everybody, or I'm going to turn everything on so that it's an internal document. I don't have to turn anything off. If it's an external document, maybe you want to turn certain pieces of information off, and you don't want to have to go through and check these boxes every time. All right, so you can create those little templates there. I'm going to say OK, and it's going to remind me, hey, do you want to update all of your lists? Okay, yeah, actually update all my lists before you generate the PDF, and then it's going to take and it's going to package everything in this project file into a single PDF. Okay, so here I am in Adobe Reader. Okay, it's not limited to only Adobe Reader, it's just what I happen to use. And we have the entire 12-page PDF of our project file, cover sheet, table of contents, and of course, the most important, the diagram sheets. Okay. Now, remember we talked about that intelligent information? That is included inside of here. So if we wanted to see what size this pipe is, what kind of component that is, where does this pipeline continue on to the other sheet? Okay, we can come over here and see where that comes in. Also, the information that I put in here myself, okay, all of the temperatures, the fluid medium, hot water, those types of things, they show up right within inside of here. Okay. Also with the reports, the lists down here, you want to find out, hey, where's my V2005? Click here and it goes and takes you right to where that component is inside of the PDF. All right, so this is a great communication and collaboration tool without having any additional expense. Now, one thing that I forgot to show was, or talk about, was another level of intelligence. So I have these purchased parts, these valves. We don't make them, we don't manufacture them, we purchase them and put them into our designs. Okay, same with the pump. So we can come in here, and if this is coming from somewhere else, we can actually, or it doesn't, wherever, we can take and attach a spec sheet from the manufacturer. So I'll say pull up the information here about this valve. Okay, and so now I got the spec sheet here from the manufacturer of this valve and all of the information in here that I need to know about it. And it's right at the engineer's fingertips. We don't even have to do a web search for it. Okay. And you can create many different types of documents, multiple links, that type of thing. And it can be any Windows file. Okay, in my case, it was a PDF, but it could be a Word document, Excel spreadsheet, whatever it might be. All right. And also our reports. Okay, any of these reports can be exported out. So we can go into our lists, we can go out to a parts list, which would be a bill of materials, or this component list. A lot of times people might want to bring that over into a CSV file, a text file, an Excel spreadsheet, or an XML file. Okay, and then we can now go and export that out and pull it into your external program, Excel, Word, well, not Word, but Excel, text files, that type of thing, and do whatever else that you might want to do with it and manipulate it, pull it into an ERP system. Yeah, a lot of things that you can do there. And so really, at the end of the day here, we can also get into creating some more intelligent kind of spec sheets here to where, you might need some more information. So we can say, well, pressure vessels, we need to keep track of them. And maybe have some specific data that we want to be displayed about specific types of components. Okay, and so those can all be set up here in a template that we can just drag and drop out here. And we can say that, hey, I want this to be a new component list here. And we can give this a name here. We can say that this is going to be my pressure vessel, my PV data sheet number 1. Okay, give it a name, and then whenever I refresh my lists here, you can go ahead and say just update my lists. It'll go in and find out, oh, we have more than one pressure vessel, so we need to create more than one sheet. And then we can come in here and we can see any specific pieces of information about each individual. You can see the tag numbers change up here, the size description, that kind of thing with what's going on. So you can set up these templates to do many different types of things here. And then you can even take this one step further and really automate things as well.